Did you all enjoy that? Yes, looks like you're spoiled here, I can tell. Healthy, delicious potlucks every week. So my husband and I are really happy to be here. We've enjoyed meeting many of you, and I'm excited to continue sharing the wonderful message of the gospel and health united together. And so this afternoon, what I'm going to talk to you about is God's steps for physical healing. Before we begin, would you have a prayer with me? Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for saving us. We're so thankful to be in your hands. It is the best place to be. And even when we face trials, even if those trials are physical afflictions, we're just grateful to be in your hands because we know that you love us, you have a plan for us, and we know that through these challenges that we experience, like Gabriel talked about this morning, you have great plans to glorify your name across the earth, to show people who you really are, and also to change us and to save us. And so I just ask that you would please be with us this afternoon as we continue to talk about health. And I ask that you would please speak through me. We ask for the Holy Spirit. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. So, are any of you struggling with anything in your health? You don't have to raise your hands. Many people are. In fact, according to the World Health Organization, about 1/3 of the world is sick. Maybe you have an ache or pain here or there. Maybe you lack energy. Maybe you feel tired all the time. Maybe you struggle with depression. Maybe you have brain fog, anxiety. Maybe you have an illness or disease such as high blood pressure or high cholesterol. Maybe you're obese. Maybe you're overweight. Maybe you have cancer. Maybe you have an autoimmune disease. We talked a little bit about that this morning. Those are incredibly on the rise. Many people have those now. Or maybe you just don't feel good and you don't know why. You know there's something wrong with your health, but you haven't received a diagnosis. That may be the hardest place to be in, is when you have something wrong and you just don't know what it is. At least if you know what it is, you can kind of start planning your path to healing and look for solutions. But I know many people are struggling with health conditions where they just don't know what's wrong. In fact, some people will be suffering from a very real physical health condition, and they will go to the doctor, oftentimes, numerous times, and the doctor will even not find anything. They'll run tests. They won't really find anything where they can diagnose you, and many times people leave with the diagnosis that it's all in your head. I don't know if that's happened to any of you. That could be very discouraging, frustrating. But like we looked at this morning that Gabriel talked about, Jesus is with you through it, and he has bigger plans than we have any idea about. And so if you have any of these ailments, do you want God to heal you? Of course. Well, I have good news for you. God's plan for you is healing. And I know I can say that across the board with whatever you have because we know Jesus is going to heal us. It's just a matter of when. We know he's going to heal all of us at his second coming. And that's something we can all at least look forward to. That we know we're going to get new bodies, no more pain. We're going to have the body, not that we wish we had from when we were teens, but the body we really never had. That's a really exciting thought. I want to be able to leap and bound 20 feet like a gigantic grasshopper. It would be fun to play with how our new bodies are going to be and the capabilities that we have. To be able to swim underwater with the dolphins for 20 minutes. There's going to be no limit. And so we know that that's coming for us, all of us, one day. And that's encouraging. We know that God's going to completely heal and restore our degrading bodies at Jesus' second coming. But many times he will heal us and restore us to abundant health before that time. Of course, we want to submit everything to his will, but there may be some things that can expedite our healing in various circumstances. So let's start off by going to 3 John 3 John chapter 1, verse 2. I love this text in regards to health. I think this is my favorite one. 3 John, there's only one chapter. Verse 2, it says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers." And so even as God wants us to be healthy spiritually, he wants that abundant life for us physically too, that we don't suffer from diseases that we don't have to. And so as we seek Jesus for healing, we may very well be able to find healing sooner than the second coming by looking to God's word and what it says about healing. It depends, of course, on what the nature of the illness is, what you have, but many times that healing can come before the second coming. How can that be? How can we speed up that process? So that's what we're going to get into this afternoon. There are actually many ancient secrets of healing in the Bible. Would you like to know what they are? Ancient secrets of healing. Sounds pretty good to me. Well, we're going to look at 3 principles in the Bible of what we could possibly do to speed up healing. So, the first one we're going to look at, it's in the example of the great physician, Jesus, when he walked on earth. He set a lot of good examples for healing. One thing that Jesus would do, oftentimes, is when he healed them, he would often tell them to do something in conjunction with their healing. And you know, this is just like God. He always respects our freedom of choice. He always wants us to have the ability to choose him if we want, and he never forces his will on us. And I love that about God. He gives us the freedom of choice. And so, as he wants us to choose him every day, we have to make that decision every day. He also offers that in the area of health. And if we really want to be healthy, he gives us that choice. And so, Christ often told people to do something in regards to their healing. Let's turn to John, the Gospel of John, chapter 5. We're going to look at a famous story I think all of you are familiar with. John chapter 5. And here is the story of the poor, crippled man at the pool of Bethesda. And so you're all familiar with the story. The poor man is waiting there, looking to be healed. He wants to get into that water, but everyone else gets in first, and he's waiting there. It says in verse 5 that he had the infirmity 38 years. Okay, I just turned 37. So 38 years is a long time. Being sick 38 years longer than I've been alive, wow, that's a long time to be sick. Verse 6, it says, "When Jesus saw him lie and knew that he had been now a long time in that case, he saith unto him, Wilt thou be made whole?" What a wonderful thing to hear. Will you be made whole? Jesus is asking the man to make a choice. And it was up to the man if he truly wanted healing. Certainly the man could have made excuses and he could have rejected Jesus' help. But thankfully, the story ends very well. In verse 8, it says, Jesus saith unto him, Rise, take up thy bed, and walk. So Jesus actually gave him 3 things to do, very simple things. And the man had to have faith that Jesus could heal him. But he gave him something to do in conjunction with the man's healing. And thankfully, the man did just that. And what happened to him? He took up his bed and walked. It said in verse 9, he was made whole. He was made whole. And I just want to make a note on this. You'll notice this throughout the stories of Jesus' healing. He healed people physically, but many times it says that the person was made whole. And that's the kind of healing that Jesus always does. It's a holistic approach to health. It doesn't just take into account our physical healing, but while he heals us physically, he's wanting to heal us spiritually too. And isn't that what's most important? This is what we're taking to heaven with us, what's in here, what's in our heart, our character. And so Jesus wants to make us whole too. And I'm going to talk more about this as Gabriel talked already this morning, but don't miss that theme. Whenever you're sick, and no matter what you have, even if it's the common cold or the flu, I just want to encourage you to put on new glasses when you're going through that experience and just start looking for those spiritual gems of truth. Start looking for metaphors through what you're going through. Start looking for just things that God is trying to teach you through it, because through those lessons, you're going to be made whole. God's going to teach you something. He's going to change your character through it. And so look for those spiritual lessons. Let's look at, let me just refer. I think we're all familiar with the story about Naaman in 2 Kings chapter 5. So do you remember what was Naaman asked to do to heal his leprosy? He was asked to go wash 7 times in the Jordan River. And would the healing have come if he hadn't done that? No. It's what God asked him to do through the prophet Elijah. And he went down and he washed, and he came out, and he was clean. The leprosy was gone. There was that element of choice, that element of Naaman needing to do something to cooperate with God in his healing. Now, how does this apply to us now? Well, this principle of doing something, for us to do something to facilitate our healing, it also applies to us today. I'm going to go over some very simple foundational principles of the way it can apply. So there are some foundational principles that really must be in place in order to receive healing. And as we've had experience with autoimmune, there's things that are very specifically autoimmune, things that you need to do to specifically heal autoimmune. But if these foundational principles are not there, laid at the groundwork, then anything specific is really not going to have the benefit that it could. And so this is just going to be a baseline of health for all of us. Now, this may be familiar to some of you, may be a review, but you may pick up something new. So there are what us as an Adventist church has whittled down. There are 8 principles of good health, and you may remember them with the acronym New Start. Have you ever heard of New Start? Yes, okay, so this might be a review. So reviewing what they stand for, you have the N, New Start. N, nutrition, or I'm sorry, since you know it, I need to quiz you. Okay, so N is good nutrition. E is W, S, good. T, good. A, R, and T. Wow, A+ for all of you. Very good. Very good. So if these health principles are new to you, now is the best time to start practicing them. But maybe you've heard them before, sounds like you have. So we're going to review though. Here comes the questions, just to see if you're implementing these things in your life. And these are good, just to go down the list. Maybe you get run down with your lifestyle and you're wondering, I'm just not feeling that good. It's just good to go back to these and look at each one and see, am I really following these? Because sometimes they're so simple, they're easy to forget, really. And God's made them so simple, free. I love that about the health message God's given us. It's also good to go back and read The Ministry of Healing. Wonderful book, wonderful book. Go back and read that book again. It's a good time to just refresh us with these principles if you're struggling with your health. So I listed them in order of, New Start, the acronym, but I'm going to go through them now more so in the area of, I don't want to say importance because they're really all important, but maybe in the order of most obvious and so forth, easiest. So the first one is air, fresh air. So here's some questions to just consider, if you're experiencing these foundational principles of health. So fresh air. Are you getting outside in the fresh air every day for a walk or jog in order to facilitate that deep breathing? Your lungs, they're deep, and sometimes if we're just doing shallow breathing, we're only circulating the top of that air in our lungs. We want to get that deep breathing where we get everything in and everything out. And so a good way to do that is go for a walk or a jog. And really, jogging, exercise, something like that, it's going to force you to have that deep breathing. So are you getting that fresh air every day? Okay, what about, do you keep a constant current of fresh air circulating throughout your house day and night, year-round? Even in colder weather, do you have a window cracked open as you sleep to get fresh air as you're sleeping? This is one of the major reasons people get sick in the winter. Of course, there's more things floating around, but one of the main reasons is, what does everyone do in the winter to their windows? They close the windows, and it stops the circulation of fresh air. And if you think about it, every time we breathe in, we breathe out, we're breathing out carbon dioxide, which is a waste product for us. And so if you have a house full of people, even you and your spouse, you're in the bed all night, you're exhaling this carbon dioxide. The room can become poisoned in a sense just by everyone's exhaling. And so you want to keep that fresh current of air. My husband and I, we like to leave the window cracked, even just, a little bit in the winter. I mean, it's still cold, but, just a little bit will give that fresh current of air without letting out so much heat. So that's something to incorporate into your evening. That's, 8 to 10 hours where you can be getting that fresh air as you're sleeping. And this is one of the main things. If you're sick, many times just the fresh air is something enough to get your body detoxing itself and feeling better. Okay, do you live where the air is pure from pollution and dampness above the miasma and smog of the cities? And if not, have you considered moving to an area where maybe the air is better quality? There's microclimates everywhere you go, and sometimes when the air sinks, it follows those pathways of the rivers down, and many times you'll get that stagnant air. So just consider, where you live and evaluate, are you able to get some fresh air? Is it close by? We were in touch with, when we were doing a meeting in an area of high agriculture in the Central Valley, North Central Valley in California. Gabriel suffered a lot from his autoimmune condition. It flared up more than it ever has before because of the quality of the air. Because they would, just field after field, orchard after orchard, they would have planes going out and spraying the fields with the pesticides and herbicides. And Gabriel's condition got worse than it ever has been before. And then we started meeting. So many people in the church had autoimmune. And we even discovered one case where a lady was seeing a doctor in Davis, which is pretty far away, so she was trying to see a specialist. And he would try to help her, and she would keep getting sick again over and over, the things he would try to do to help her. It got to the point where he told her, he says, I'm not going to see you again until you move, because it's your air quality. And so she made a hard decision. She looked around. But there was an area that was about half an hour away that was just up a little higher, probably above 1,500 or 2,000 feet in the hills. And she moved there to Paradise, and her condition cleared up. She was able to heal and stay well. And it got to the point where even when she would drive through that area, it would be sensitive. Her lungs would be sensitive, and she could notice a difference. And so, air quality is can be a huge concern. So consider that with your condition. Also, okay, let's move on to water. Water is another thing. So you're breathing every second of every day. Well, the next thing that you would need would be water. Water is something that you drink lots of. Well, hopefully you are. So a good question to ask, here's an evaluation question, is do you make sure to get at least 8 to 10 glasses of water every day? How many people do that? You try? Good. And that one's an easy one to forget too. You get busy with the day, you're going here, you're going there. My husband and I, we try to keep these 5-cup metal water bottles with us and just fill it up. And if you drink 2 of those a day, that's 10 cups of water. So helps you keep track of your water. And a mathematical formula, because obviously there's people who are taller, they have a larger body mass versus a smaller person. You can have different water needs. And so if you'd like a formula, this is really fun. Take your body weight in pounds. Okay, so get your number, your body weight in pounds. Divide it by 2. And then that is the number of ounces that it's good for you to drink every day. So for example, I'm 140 pounds. So divide that by 2. That's 70 ounces of water per day for me, at least. Now, of course, if you're exercising or if you're sweating, you want to drink more. And so here's another test to analyze that is, do you drink enough water to keep your urine a pale straw color? You can just kind of analyze, are you dehydrated or are you getting enough water by analyzing the color of your urine? Also, are you drinking water that is pure water, free from fluoride, chlorine, plastic leaching chemicals such as BPA? These are things to think about because over time, a lot of these chronic issues where there's like a chronic poisoning or chronic illness, it usually happens from multiple factors, multiple sources of toxicity that are just contributing, and your body is kind of just collecting it day after day after day. And then eventually you end up with a condition, like an autoimmune condition or cancer or, whatever else you might have. And it's because your body has really been acting like a filter and hasn't really had a chance to get rid of all of that. And so with water going through you all the time, this is a huge issue. A cousin of mine, him and his family, they lived up in Washington in a rural area. They had well water. So you think, oh, this is great. This is as good as it gets, right? And my cousin, he grew up on a farm, and he is used to being outside all day working, heavy manual labor. And so he would drink lots and lots and lots of water. He would go through a gallon of water a day, easy. And he was really healthy, but at some point, he started getting really sick. And they found that he had a gigantic tumor, like the size of a grapefruit, in his abdomen. And it was a whole ordeal, dealing with that. But in trying to research and discover, what is causing this, because their church, which was about, a small 12-person church, numerous people were developing tumors on their liver and their kidneys. They're wondering, something's going on here, and we're in this, country area. Well, what they found out is the areas in that locality had been heavily farmed. So you had about 40 years of farming where the fertilizers had seeped down into the water table. And he was just filtering all of that. And he got it so bad because he was drinking so much water, which would normally have been a good thing. But when you're drinking water that's contaminated, you're like a filter. And so, it's sad we have to think about these things, things that we didn't have to think about maybe 100 years ago. But that's the world we're living in right now. And, the devil hates us, and I think he's trying to kill us as many ways as he can. But, as he is, God is also letting the information come out where we can be educated about it and become aware. And there's some things that we can adjust in our lifestyle so that we can avoid these things and be able to live healthfully. So that was water. Now we're moving on to sunshine. Of course, we don't want to burn, but the sunshine exposure on our skin is actually how our body makes a very special vitamin. Does anyone know what vitamin that is? Vitamin D. Okay, you all, I think I'm preaching to the choir here. Everyone knows this good stuff. No, but it's good to hear. I love hearing it over and over. Vitamin D. Now, this is specifically a very good vitamin for autoimmune conditions. Many times people with autoimmune diseases will end up taking steroids that suppress their immune system. And vitamin D actually works like a steroid in the body. It is the best nutrient you can have when you have an autoimmune disease. So think about this. You have an autoimmune disease. Of course, there's other things you need to do. But one of the things you can do, here's one of the treatments. Laying in the sun with your back exposed for 20 minutes, just laying there quiet, that's one of the treatments for autoimmune. Now, how bad is that? I can't think of many better things I like to do is lay in the warm sun with it on your back and just relax. God is so good. He makes these wonderful, simple, natural remedies. But if you don't get that exposure, you're not getting that vitamin D. And there's been some studies done that actually it cannot be created as well if you're moving around. So you want to try to get it when you're laying still. 15 to 30 minutes. If you do 30 minutes of sun on a large part of your body, like your back, that will give you 20,000 IU of vitamin D. You know how much that is? It's a good amount. It's a lot. Like in the supplements in the store, 1,000 is considered a good amount. 3,000, 5,000, 20,000 in 30 minutes free from the sun. Isn't that wonderful? So, and your body accumulates it, it saves it. And so throughout the summer, you can be accumulating theoretically enough to last you through the winter. However, that depends on where you live. I think it's the 35th or 40th, I don't have it written down right now, but it's the 35th or 40th parallel line where if you're above that, then in the winter, you don't get strong enough sun because the sun is not high enough. But if you get it, throughout the summer, it can last you almost through the winter, and then you may consider, a D3 to get you through the rest. But vitamin D is very important. You need vitamin D in order for your body to absorb calcium, which is, of course, very important for your bones and your teeth. So make sure you're getting a good amount of sun exposure. Of course, not too much. You don't want to burn. Okay, one of my favorite, the next one is exercise. Exercise. Are you getting enough exercise? And pardon me for a minute. I think my computer is running out of battery and it's plugged in. So if there's someone who can maybe find a plug-in that is active, if you don't mind. Sorry to bother you, but thank you. Appreciate it. So exercise. So are you doing an activity where you work up a sweat? I mean, walking is good. And if you're not walking, start with walking. That's great. But really, you want to work up a sweat. That's one of the ways in which your body detoxes is through your pores. And so when you're sweating, you're really eliminating what you need to through your skin. It's the largest organ in your body, your skin. And so are you doing exercise where you really work up a sweat and you breathe hard for at least 30 minutes, about 5 times a week? Are you doing that every week? Yeah, if you're not, I would just encourage you, take up some form of weightlifting. And you don't necessarily have to join a gym. There's so much you can do just with gravity. I haven't maxed it out yet. Like with push-ups, there's apps you can get on your phone that coach you through like working your way up to 100 push-ups. And so I've done that. I've worked my way up to 100 push-ups on my knees. And so now I'm going to do the real ones and work my way up too. But by the way, exercise, this is so good. When you specifically are building your muscle, that is key in getting rid of fat off your body. The aerobic is important. It's really good. But you may notice, and I don't know if you've personally tried this, but you might have friends who will do a lot of aerobic. They'll be running, and they just won't lose the weight that they're trying to lose. And so if this is you and you want to try to slim down a little bit, build some muscle, I would encourage you to do some weight-bearing exercises. So something where you're going to be sore the next day. So then there's so many easy things you can do. You can do squats with just your body weight. Try this. 3 sets of 30 repetitions of squats. So that would be like you're going down like this 30 times. 1, 2, 30 times. And then you rest, and you do that 3 times. Do you think you can do that? Yes. It's harder than you think. But that's like a warm-up for Gabe's program that he's on. I got him a book for, I think, last birthday. It's called Shred It, and it's a vegan bodybuilding. And so, there's no limit. You can be vegan and you can have huge muscles. You can bodybuild. So, you're not limited. Don't let anyone tell you that, like, oh, you can't get enough protein. You can. And so that's like the warm up, I think, for the actual bodybuilding. So, there's lots you can do. The push-ups, squats. So I just encourage you to, try to get those, get your muscles going. And sweat and feel sore the next day. You'll feel like you really accomplished something. And so for every pound of muscle you put on your body, 1 pound of muscle, you'll be burning an extra 100 calories a day, just having that muscle sit on your body, because it requires more to sustain it. So, you want to do some aerobic 30 minutes, 5 times a week, and then the weight bearing or strength building exercise. Are you doing that at least 3 times a week? So I would encourage you, if you don't have that in your schedule, try to incorporate that. You'll feel really good, and you'll start to notice the muscles growing. And I think we're really good. Well, in general, our focus is on diet a lot, right? We have a huge emphasis on diet, but I feel like we could grow as a church in the area of exercise. And this is a way where we can all start doing that. Speaking of, if you wouldn't mind, I know this is the hardest time of the day to stay awake. And so if you wouldn't mind, would everyone just like to stand for a minute and take a deep breath and stretch for a second? I don't want anyone to fall asleep. Yeah. You can just take a stretch and just take a deep breath. Feel like you're waking up. Yeah. You can some calf raises. Okay. Feel free to have a seat again if you feel awake enough. All right. Okay, next one is temperance. And I'm sorry if this is a review, but I know it's probably relevant to someone because it's easy to fall behind in some of these things. It's good to have a reminder. So the next one is temperance. So temperance, that means self-control. And the correct definition, well, let me ask you. Okay, true or false? This is the definition of temperance. Everything in moderation. Okay, I would say false. The true definition of temperance is everything that is good in moderation, but the complete abstinence of all that is harmful. And you can find that in the Spirit of Prophecy. So, do you completely abstain from harmful substances, such as tobacco, alcohol, caffeine? Of course, there's many others. You can think about what's harmful. So are you abstaining entirely from all that is harmful and using in balance that which is helpful? And also, have you eliminated foods and drinks from your diet that contain harmful chemicals, such as artificial colors and flavors, hydrogenated oils, MSG, that's monosodium glutamate, high fructose corn syrup? These are things that have been added into our food supply over the years for the sake of profit, with the businesses. And if you look into them, each one of these things are actually very, very harmful. And when you have the combined effect of these things together, this is where you end up with some issues that are like chronic illnesses. They just can't put their finger on what caused it because you've been getting a small poisoning over time, but it's been building up in your body, and at some point your body just says, enough, I can't take any more, and it revolts against you. So keep an eye on that. Get used to reading labels if you aren't already. You just can't trust what is out there because it's about business. So you really have to be your own food advocate, health advocate, food advocate. You have to become your own detective. Realize what these things are, the ingredients are. Usually, if you can't pronounce it, it's not going to be good for you. Usually, if the list of ingredients is this long, usually it has several things in there that are going to hurt you. So just, start heading that direction if you're not already, and start reading labels and understanding what these things are, and look for them and look out for them. And thankfully, there's a huge push for a demand for more healthful products. So they're out there, thankfully. And so you just got to look for them. Okay, temperance. Now, here's a question. This is one where it's, it's something that's good for you, but you don't want to overdo it. So do you overeat? That's a hard one, isn't it? Especially at a tasty potluck where there's 50 different foods and you want to try all of them, and then you find the one and you're like, oh, that's my favorite. I'm going to have triple servings of that. Do you overeat? Yeah. Yeah, that's an easy thing to do. But, temperance is a fruit of the Spirit, and God can give us the power to be temperate, have self-control, and not be gluttons. And so that's a blessing to be able to have that from God. He'll give it to us. And, if you're struggling with any of these things, especially this one with overeating, ask God to help you with it. And in the moment of temptation, cry out to God. He will deliver you and break that hold that food has over you, because it's an addiction. There's some things that are chemical addictions. There's behaviors that are addictions. And overeating many times is a comfort for people where they've gone through tragedy in their life. That's what they turn to. Some people turn to alcohol. Some people turn to their comfort food and eating, and it's a very comforting thing for them. So God can break that if it is an addiction for you, and maybe you feel like you just can't get out from under that. He can help you. Just cry out to him in the moment of temptation, and then quote a Bible verse, something relevant. Maybe you could say, whatsoever you eat, whatsoever you drink, do all to the glory of God, whatsoever you do. So that's a good one, and fight the devil with the word of God. Okay, and nutrition. Nutritious diet. Are you eating a nutritious diet? Okay, well, define nutritious, right? That can mean different things to different people. So God has given us an eating plan to follow in the Bible. He's actually given us 3 from which to choose. He's given us the acceptable, the better, and the ideal. Which one do you want? Ideal? Oh, well, me too. If I was offered 3 different cars, I would want the ideal car. Well, that's what he wants for us too. And so if you go to Leviticus 11, I'm sure you all know what you can find there. You find the defined, if you eliminate these things, it gives you the acceptable diet. So that eliminates unclean animals from your diet, such as pig, shellfish, any meat with the blood or the fat in it. And since it's harder to find meat without the blood, and removing it is so inconvenient, most people who discover God's instructions about unclean food in Leviticus 11, they simply choose to eliminate all meat from their diets and be vegetarian. And this would be a diet that's the better diet than the acceptable one, the vegetarian diet. And that's a good decision to move in that direction, because it's been proven that animal foods, especially today, they're just full of disease. The Bible predicted a time when the animals would languish, it says. And I think we're there, if not before. I mean, it's now. The animals are just really under a struggle of disease. Many times the animals, they're found to have tumors in them, and they actually have ways of covering those up to keep them just moving through the profits. You don't want to lose, the businesses don't want to lose the profits, so they have ways of covering the tumors and the animals. It's just a sad time that we're living in. But God's given us light about this, and I praise the Lord. He's given us many alternatives, healthful alternatives, especially in this country. And so, the better diet, it's better because you're avoiding animal foods, you're avoiding, the diseases, bacteria, tumors that they have, which we know these things lead to heart disease, diabetes, obesity. But you can find the ideal diet, and I know that's what you said you all want, so I know you're interested in the ideal diet. You can find that where, do you think? Yes, in the beginning, when God created mankind, and he gave them what we would thrive best on, which is a whole foods, plant-based diet. And Genesis 1:29, you're welcome to go there if you'd like, but it lists out these foods that God gave us. He gave us the seeds, and so a seed would be anything that you can grow anything that will sprout something else. So that would include a lot of things. That would include seeds, grains, nuts, beans, and then also, of course, he gave us fruits. Then, after sin, God added those leafy greens. And there's a reason he did that. He knew that with sin, we would really need those leafy greens. If you ever needed to do a cleanse, you know what you're going to be drinking a lot of? It's that green juice, the leafy green juice. The greens are so powerful to cleanse. So powerful to cleanse your body. They're just the highest in all nutrients. Kale, collard greens, spinach is very good. Yeah, look at the Andy scale, ANDI. The Andy scale is a scale they came up with to analyze the total vitamin, mineral, nutrient capacity of all the different produce. And so when you look at it, you find, fruits, they're, 200, 300, I think is where they max out at. It's out of 1,000. I can't remember if I said that. And then you get up to spinach, you get up to 500. You start heading up there, broccoli, you start getting up there to 700s, you're at like bok choy, things like that. But 1,000, you know what it's 1,000? The leafy greens, especially the kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, and mustard greens, I think those, and you can tell, you look at them and they're just, they're dark and they're packed with vitamins and minerals and nutrients. The chlorophyll, yes. And do you know what is it that's when you get a picture of heaven and you see what God has to heal us? You know what it says in Revelation? The leaves on the tree of life. So it's very interesting. There's a huge connection there with healing and the greens. So make sure you get your salad every day. And I know we had a great one today. We really enjoyed that. And of course, Daniel 1, we see that this ideal diet, this plant-based whole foods diet, is affirmed where Daniel and his 3 friends chose this diet. And what happened? Well, he chose the ideal diet. He got the ideal benefits from it. He ended up becoming 10 times smarter than the smartest and most learned men in the ruling world kingdom at the time, Babylon. And so I think that's the first case study we have in the Bible, is in the Bible. The first scientific study. You have the control group and you have the experimental group, and it had amazing results. And so if you're sick, or maybe you just want to enjoy ideal health, which eating plan do you think would be the wisest to choose? Sorry? The ideal one, right. If you want ideal health, choose the best option. Choose the ideal plan. And you'll be surprised. Some people are afraid. I think they're afraid, I don't want to give up this, I don't want to give up that, It's going to take a leap of faith, because you're trying something new, perhaps. Something maybe you didn't grow up on. Maybe you're afraid to say goodbye to certain things that you're used to. Maybe some comfort foods, But let me tell you, God has so many blessings on the other end. You just have to step through that, and then he blesses you. I think he refines your taste buds when you start eating more simply. I've noticed that in my own life. I've never enjoyed food so much in my life. And so he has those blessings. And then how you're going to feel. We talk to people, in our prophecy meetings where, and this one lady, she was hunched over on a cane and just walking. She looked like she was probably in her, let's say, late 50s, maybe early 60s, but the way she walked, it was like she was 90, and she decided to change her diet and focus more on a plant food diet. And the next time we saw her, it was like a month or two later. It was at a friend's wedding. We were shocked who she was. She was like running around like a little girl. It's like she'd gained her life back. She was bouncing around, no more cane. She had this beautiful glow about her. And she told us, yeah, I had IBS for years. But in actuality, it was just a bad diet. So she was so happy at the health benefits that she didn't even expect, but that came along with this new decision. And so I just want to encourage you, if you haven't chosen the ideal diet. Well, no, I guess you did. You just did. You said you wanted the ideal diet, and so congratulations. Good job choosing the ideal diet. And so really the best diet is a whole food, plant-based diet, low in fat, and That's what studies are coming out with as what people do the best on and what the people who live the longest eat and who feel the best. And so another question in this category is just, kind of the same thing with the temperance, is to have a nutritious diet. Are you making sure to incorporate a lot of the healthful food into your diet? And are you eliminating the harmful things for yourself? Alcohol, caffeine, flesh foods, animal products, chemicals, refined sugars, processed foods. So it's a switch, in a lifestyle, but I think you'll be very benefited from it. Okay, then we have rest. Do you stay up late or do you try to get your lights out by 9? Early to bed, early to rise? It's so true. The hours before midnight are said to be worth 2 of the ones after. And we've done the math on this, and it's been true for us. If I get in bed at 8 o'clock, I'm sleeping by 8:30. I wake up at 4 o'clock naturally. And I'm a night person. I'm a night owl. And I can sleep in the morning. So the early sleep is really good quality sleep. Also, do you rest and worship God on the 7th day according to his commandments? We have a weekly rest we need to partake in, and God recreates us during that time. Trust in God. Are you putting God first in your day with Bible study and prayer? As Gabe and I travel, oftentimes we're surprised at how many Christians, how many Seventh-day Adventists, people who have been in the church a long time, actually don't have a daily devotional life. And I'm not going to ask to raise your hands, but just ask yourself, am I spending that quality time with God every day? Because if you're not talking to him every day, you're not going to know his voice, and you're not going to be trusting him. And so every morning, are you starting your day with the most important part of the day, which is some time in the Bible and in prayer, making that connection with God strong? He knows what you're going to face in the day, and he's going to give you what you need for that day. Have you surrendered your life completely to God? Is there any area of your life you're saying no to? These are really a lot of self-reflection questions just to see where we're at. So if you've been aware of these simple health principles but you're not following them, good question to think about is, how can God bless me with healing when I'm not living up to the light and knowledge that he's already given me? We want to be faithful to that light that God's already given us so that he'll give us more. And so if you're not following any of these principles of health, I want to encourage you, don't be overwhelmed. Just take the first one, fresh air. Just start there and start to improve your health in that area. Then move to the next one with the intention of going through all of them. And you'll be amazed. I mean, you might not even need to do anything else specifically for yourself in order to heal, because you're doing some things that are going to give you a foundation of good health. You might have conditions clear up. And so, do you see any areas you can improve? Yeah? So would you like to renew your efforts for good health in adopting the rest of these areas you may be lacking in? Wonderful. Well, me too. I'm gonna renew the effort and keep going. Okay, so that was the first thing, is that Jesus had people participate in their healing oftentimes. The second one is very interesting. Let's turn to John 9. We're already in John. Turn to John 9. And let's look at verse 6. It says, when he had thus spoken, he spat on the ground and made clay of the spittle. And he anointed the eyes of the blind man with clay. This is interesting. Jesus actually used a natural remedy here in conjunction with this man's healing. And I want to point out a few other examples. In 2 Kings 20, verse 7, if you're familiar with this story of Hezekiah, he was ill. And you know what God had Isaiah do? Do you remember this story? Yeah. It says there, and Isaiah said, take a lump of figs. And they took and laid it on the boil, and he recovered. There's another example of God employing natural remedies to in the healing of the people. And then, of course, we already looked at or thought of Naaman. Naaman also had to employ a natural remedy using the water in order to receive healing. Now, of course, the power of the healing always came from God. God healed them. But he used these things in conjunction with it. And so why is it good to emphasize natural remedies versus medications? I think medications have their time and place. If you're in surgery, I can't imagine going through a surgery without some kind of medication or help. If you have immediate life-threatening emergency, it would be very helpful then. However, it's good to remember drugs never heal disease. They never heal disease. So if you have an illness, if you have a disease, I just want to encourage you, don't look at medications as the answer, because all it's doing is hiding your symptom. You want your symptom because you want to know what's going on. When your light in the dashboard goes on at the car, you don't want to smash out the light, right? That doesn't fix the problem. You want to go to the root of the problem. The symptom tells you what's going on. And so when you take in a medication, many times it just changes the form and location of the disease, and it puts extra weight on your kidneys and your liver. Especially antibiotics are really hard on your kidneys. And so you already have an illness, and then you're afflicting your body again. When you take the medication in, the way it works is the body rallies to this new affliction, and that extra push of energy can sometimes make it look like you're getting better, but the long-term effects are really what you see a difference in. An article in the Chemical Research and Toxicology, it says this. It says the chemicals most often associated with development of autoimmunity in humans are medications. So, like I mentioned earlier, toxicity is a huge issue, the issue for the most part in autoimmunity. And it says here, the chemicals most often associated with autoimmunity are medications. In fact, did you know they even have a specific name for a kind of lupus called systemic lupus erythematosus, SLE, which is specifically caused by drug-induced. It's a drug-induced autoimmunity. And so, we really want to head away from that and look at what we can do to assist the body in healing itself. And, God has given us many natural remedies. Maybe you've experimented with some. I just want to list a few. Oh, and by the way, sorry, I just want to mention, telling the difference between what would be, say, a drug versus a natural remedy, I would differentiate it by that which causes harm to the body. So a drug, it causes harm to the body. A natural remedy would not cause harm to the body. So you can kind of differentiate the difference. Because some might say, oh, well, are you using this drug? It's like, are you using this herb like a drug? Well, if it's not causing harm to the body, I wouldn't call it a drug. That would be the difference. But there's many natural remedies. One thing that's very easy, it's free, it's actually cheaper than your regular day-to-day life, is fasting. I had a cold, I had a cough for like a month, and this was the kind of thing where the cold would come around the office, and people would be coughing for like a month long, and people just couldn't kick it, and I had a sore throat, it would come on, I tried to fight it off with, garlic and lemon, come on again, and at one point I thought, I just need to kick this. And so I did a juice fast where you do, fresh juices through the juicer for a day and a half. It kicked it, and it never came back. And so when you're fasting, you're not digesting, you're giving your body a chance to rest and to start healing and to start eliminating things that have been clogging your systems in the body. So that's pretty simple, fasting. You can do water fast, but if you're active, like you have to go to work, you can do juices to give you that energy from the calories. And just do that fresh juices, especially, like I mentioned, the greens. We have hydrotherapy. This was used so much back, in our early days as a church, and it's really not used so much anymore. So simple. Even a hydrotherapy shower. How many have tried a hydrotherapy shower? So it's just, you get really hot in the hot water, and then you put the cold on. And I mean all the way to the cold. The contrast is what makes it really work. But just even a hydrotherapy shower, it increases your white blood cells by 30%. So how many of you would like a 30% boost on your immune system when you're fighting something? Yeah, it's really good. It's also helpful with injuries. I don't have time to get into all the details, but I'm sure you probably have heard of these things before. I just want to encourage you to build up your medicine cabinet with these natural things. Things like charcoal, activated charcoal. Excellent, excellent thing if you have painful gas, food poisoning, detoxing from heavy metals. Excellent. It absorbs deadly poisons, and now including medicines. So if you're on a medication, then just be mindful that it will absorb your medication too. And if you are on medication, by the way, I just want to say, you might just be careful how you get off your medications if you're going to try to do that. Be under the supervision of your doctor, but I'm sure many doctors would be happy to try to move you in that direction too. Lemon is excellent, garlic, onions. These are simple, cheap things that God's given us. Aloe vera, turmeric. Has anyone ever heard of turmeric here? Yes. Is it in every potluck dish that you make? So I don't need to tell you anything about turmeric, right? But it's incredible. And it's anti-inflammatory and relieving pain. So many times pain is caused by inflammation, chronic low-level inflammation. I used this for an injury. I had a horrible shoulder injury where the pain was excruciating, and I used the turmeric, and it has the curcumin in it, which is the active ingredient, and it took my pain down to like 10%, just like that. So it really is helpful in inflammation. And for many patients with IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, the typical prescription drugs are corticosteroids to reduce their pain symptoms. And the damage, though, that happens from those steroids in the intestinal lining actually makes your condition worse. That's really sad. You have a condition, and then what you're using to help yourself becomes making your condition worse. Well, the turmeric heals the small intestine, the leaky gut, IBS. It's also helpful with Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. Studies are showing that turmeric is as effective as Prozac in managing depression. Well, that was shocking. As effective as Prozac. It's nice that they're doing these studies now. You can research on PubMed and find all these studies. So you can do a heaping teaspoon a day with maybe half teaspoon of honey before a meal. It's really not that bad. Just take it down. I'm sure you've taken worse things in your life. We've got ginger. That's also another anti-inflammatory, relieving pain and arthritis, relieves menstrual cramps, nausea and vomiting. It improves brain function and prevents Alzheimer's. It fights cancer. It helps diabetes by lowering blood sugar. There's just so much I could have here all day, with these wonderful things God's given us. But something that's very helpful, very simple in healing the leaky gut is very simple. Onion, potato, ginger, turmeric, and salt. And it's so tasty. And you just cook that up before you go to bed and maybe put a spoon of coconut milk in there. It's the most comforting soup, and it's healing for the leaky gut. The onion has quercetin in it, which acts like a binder when you're in those villi. Very simple. Boil it 30 minutes, and you're good to go. Anyways, I've covered a lot of natural remedies there. There's more out there. But I just want to encourage you to go more that direction and really try to assist the body in healing instead of hurting it with the medications. And when you have these foundational principles of health, a new start, and you accompany that with the natural remedies, I think you're already going in a really good direction. I think you'll have many issues clear up, things you might be surprised about. The last principle, so we talked about doing something in conjunction with your healing, when Christ told people to do something. Also, Jesus encouraging natural remedies. Of course, not wanting to harm us. The third thing, and this is what Gabe and I learned through his bout with the autoimmune disease, this is the most important thing we learned, and that was the spiritual healing that goes along with the physical healing. And Jesus always wants to heal us spiritually when he heals us physically. He wants to make us whole, right? We're in John. We'll turn to chapter 5 again. Chapter 5, verse 14. It says, "Afterward Jesus findeth him," that's the crippled man who was healed, "in the temple, and said unto him, Behold, thou art made whole. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. So he wanted to give him that spiritual healing, that victory over sin. And isn't that beautiful? I'm going to give you an example. When we talked about, diet, temperance, those things are ways where God can heal you physically. If you get on a better diet, like I was telling you the stories of the people we've worked with, they experience healing from things they didn't even think they'd be healed from. But you know what you're learning at the same time? When you say, okay, God, I'm nervous about this plant-based diet. I'm going to really miss my whatever, my chicken or my cheese or whatever, you know what you think you're going to miss. When you give that to God, it's a deeper form of surrender. You're learning to give him really everything. I mean, diet, that's so close to home, probably closer to home than almost anything else. And when you see that he has a better way for you and you say, okay, I'm really not looking forward to this, but I'm going to trust you. And I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to give that to you. Look at what you're learning spiritually. You're learning a deeper surrender. You're learning trust, where you're realizing, I'm nervous about this, but I'm going to go with God's plan. I'm going to trust him through this. So you're learning these spiritual lessons. Temperance, you're learning self-control. So when you learn temperance in the area of your health, guess where that's also going to apply to? Spiritual, your relationships. Because self-control, if you're going to control yourself in regards to your health, it's that same principle there that gives you self-control to not yell at your kids, to not yell at your spouse, to not lose your temper. And so God is using these ways of physical healing to heal us in our souls. And don't you want to be a nice person? You want to be a nicer person. You want to have a happy marriage, a happy relationship in your home. This is a great package God has to put this all together. So Jesus addresses the spiritual every time he addresses the physical. And so, through the various sufferings that we've been through, we've realized that this is the most important part. And so think about this. How is God using your illness to try to benefit your life? Now, this takes a different thinking because you probably just feel like you're cursed when you're going through a sickness or an illness. I had food poisoning not too long ago, and that feels like a curse. But, with this new thinking, even through that, I thought, I'm going to go through it with these new glasses. So the whole time, I was throwing up, and I was like, God, what do you want me to learn through this? What do you want to teach me? And it just gives you a new perspective about things where your trial can actually benefit you somehow. And I know, Gabe talked about this morning. But here's a few practical questions to ask yourself. When you're going through it, what is God trying to teach me through this? What am I gaining through this experience? And then how am I growing in my character through this experience? These are valuable things. And some of these things, I'm just going to throw out some ideas. I mean, it might be different for every person, but it could be a closer walk with Jesus, getting that two-way communication going every day. It could be simply this, is understanding that your value is outside of what you can contribute. When you can't do anything else except lay on the bed, you feel like you're worth nothing sometimes. Like, I can't contribute anything. I can't work. I can't do anything. Realize that you're valuable to God just because you exist, laying on a bed, helpless. And God still sees you just as valuable. Trusting in God's love and care for you, even when you're suffering. That's powerful. You can learn a deeper level of surrender and submission, patience, humility, temperance, self-control, determination and perseverance. You're going to have to do several treatments to yourself. If you're trying to do natural remedies, it takes some effort there. To seek God in all things, to seek him for everything in your healing, to not complain. There's a big one. Sometimes isn't it easy to complain about something even when there's nothing to complain about? Well, this is the opposite, where you can learn to not complain even though you have everything to complain about. Forgiveness. You might be suffering with an issue from chronic stress because you haven't forgiven someone in your heart. And God's telling you, okay, it's time to deal with this. We really can't go any further till we've dealt with this. forgiveness. Those are the truly valuable things in life to learn, aren't they? You really could never purchase those things with money. There's no pill you could take to learn those things. So those are the three things that I wanted to talk to you about. And wrapping them up, now that you've considered these things for your own life, just want to make a last application to those around you. I spent so much time focusing in on your personal experience and having all of us personally experience these steps because, like we know, we can't teach something that we're not doing ourselves, right? So we need to become more educated, practicing in these areas to be able to share it with our neighbors. But basically, when you start learning these things, ask God for an opportunity to share it, and He will give it. And this is where the Christian life really gets exciting, when you can share these things you've learned. And so start with those closest to you. That'll be your neighbors. And I want to encourage you, choose 1 hour, one night per week that's going to be reserved for outreach night, okay? 1 hour, one night a week. And say you choose Tuesday night. So every Tuesday night, you and your spouse, or just yourself, whatever you plan, you're going to go out, and maybe if you already have a neighbor, go and talk to that neighbor and really pray for the opportunity to start up either a spiritual conversation or a health conversation. Just look for that opportunity. But maybe you're not very close with your neighbors. Use that 1 hour, that one night a week, to meet your neighbors. Or maybe you want to go out and you take a walk, and you're just looking for the person God's going to put in your path. Because maybe they live down the street from you. Maybe they're not right next door. Maybe God's making someone ready down the street. So just use that time to go take a walk throughout the neighborhood and be praying and look for those opportunities. See if you can strike up a conversation. Someone's out doing their lawn. Start talking to them. You know how to start a conversation. Oh, nice evening, isn't it? Oh, that's a nice lawn. Just small talk, and then, move it into a spiritual or health focus. People, you can always ask them, is there anything I can keep in prayer for you? They might say, I'm really struggling right now. I have chronic fatigue, and I don't know why. Boom. That's your in right there, where you can say to them, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Let's pray together about that. You can offer prayer. And then offer to them and say, I've learned quite a bit about health, and what I've learned has really been a blessing in my life. Could I come over sometime and show you a healthy recipe? Just throw it out there. Do you think you could do that? Think you could try that with your neighbor? Health really takes the edge off. It's a lot easier. And so, just throw it out there. I think you'll be surprised the response you get. People are interested. They want to learn how to cook healthy many times. And so ask them if they would like to see you cook a healthy meal, and then take that opportunity, make an appointment, and go over there and show them in their own kitchen with their own tools and everything how to make a recipe. You choose a recipe that you found that's healthy, that's tasty, and just make it for them. And it could be as easy as like a vegan pasta Alfredo. That's a hit, Just take your pick. I'm sure you have a favorite. And so, they have to be interested, of course, but, put that opportunity out there. Also, see if they'd be interested in going grocery shopping with you, because that's really where it starts, is in the ingredients. And so, make a plan to meet them at the grocery store and just show them, some of the things that you buy, and show them how to read labels. This is very practical, and people are very interested in this kind of stuff. And now this is going to be the open door for the gospel. And so after you've done like a cooking demo in their home, or maybe you have them to your home, you can say, here's where you make the intro for the spiritual. And of course, you can be cooking with them several weeks. You fill it out, ask God to guide you. But the connection, you can say something like this. You can say, did you know the Bible actually has ancient health secrets? They're going to say, really? Oh, ancient health secrets. No, I didn't know that. And then ask them, would you like to see some of those ancient health secrets in the Bible? They'll probably say yes, because you have a trust established there. So the next time, bring your Bible and have a little Bible study with them on Daniel chapter 1. That's the health chapter. And go through and show them how a plant-based diet is something that can really help them with their health. And then, the end of that chapter, it's a perfect lead-in to Bible prophecy because it says how Daniel received the visions and the dreams and how he understood the prophecies. That's your perfect lead-in where they're going to say, well, what's next? And then you can tell them, well, Daniel received many prophecies from God, many visions about the future, about the times we're living in right now. And that's the next chapter. Would you like to go over the next chapter next week? And there you go. You have Bible studies with your neighbor. And let me tell you, you might be intimidated, but it is the best feeling in the world to feed someone who's hungry. I mean, just how like you like to feed someone, maybe people like to cook. Isn't it fun to feed someone your food that you make? When you feed someone spiritually, there is no better feeling. And you just feel like, out of all the things I've done in my life, whatever my career is, this is the most important work there is. This is the best thing there is. And I can't, there's no way to understand unless you try it, unless you do it. But when you do it, let me know when you've experienced that moment, that aha moment. So anyways, that's the way how to apply it to your neighbors and to use that tool to start reaching your neighborhood, which we need to do. Recreating the ministry of Jesus. I just want to end with 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 19 and 20. It says, "For what is our hope, or joy, or crown of rejoicing? Are not even ye in the presence of our Lord Jesus Christ at his coming? For ye are our glory and joy." And so Paul's saying here, what is our joy? What is our crown? What is our hope? He says, isn't it you? It's the people. When we get to heaven, there's going to be no more saving. There's going to be no more reaching out. It's over. Now is the time where we can actually increase the population of heaven. Now, this is a very short, special time. And when we get there, let's not have regrets about the things we wish we had said and that we wish we had done. So I just want to encourage you, what we learned today, what we reviewed or focused on, get healthy yourself, and then take that. And you don't have to wait till you're, down exactly where you want to be. Just take what you know in regards to health and share it with someone else in your neighborhood. Start those connections, start those studies. It's a harder time we're living in. It's harder for you to get through people's prejudices, through people's social barriers. But God's given us health as that right arm to open the door to the gospel. And so when we do that, we'll be able to have the joy of Jesus. And those people that we see that you are helping, they become your joy, your hope, and the stars on your crown, really. And so I just want to ask you, would you like to make that a goal of yours? Would you like to take what you know about health, maybe even one healthy recipe, and would you like to find someone else, a neighbor, an acquaintance, would you like to find someone and try to teach them? Would you like to do that? Great, good, because that is going to be the way into your community. And I just want to encourage you to keep moving forward in health and keep moving forward in reaching out to your neighbors and your acquaintances. And so would you mind if we all stood up to have a closing prayer for this segment? Okay. Father in heaven, thank you so much for caring about us, so much that you want us to have the abundant life, even here and now. And thank you that as we go through illnesses and physical challenges, I thank you that you are purifying us and see something precious in us to refine. And I pray that we would just cooperate you in our healing, in our physical healing, in our spiritual healing. And Lord, as you heal us, may you use us to heal our community and the hurting people in this world, the hurting people all around us. I pray, Lord, that this church may be a light in this dark world, and that you may use this church, these precious people here, to reach their neighbors and their acquaintances. And Lord, may we do all that we can to fill heaven, that people there may be saved because we did something here and now when we can. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. There's an announcement we have.